In this week's episode, the fellas will be addressing a serious Formula One topic.
Olivier Panis is not so lucky. Panis?
Panis.
Fucking hell, Panis. Olivier Panis is not so lucky. Olivier Panis is not so lucky. His Toyotas. I can't fucking. The safety car enters the track for a second time as cars. I just couldn't stop thinking about Panis. Ugh. April 6, 2003. 2 o'clock ticks over at the Interlagos circuit in Sao Paulo, and today's race day. In borderline cyclonic conditions, 120,000 spectators take their spot around the 4.3 kilometre track, ready to watch the third of 16 races this season, a race where results were second to safety. 23-litre naturally aspirated and 1.5-litre turbocharged Formula One cars, weighing a minimum of 500 kilograms, line the curved straight of Brazil's most iconic track. Each is waiting for Charlie Whiting, the head of the FIA, to approve the start of lap 1 of a scheduled 71. This race would begin behind the safety car 15 minutes late due to the dangerous conditions on track. Barrichello took pole for his home Grand Prix, delighting the fans as it had been 12 long years since Ayrton Senna did the same for McLaren. Brazil hopes for the same start-to-finish win that the late Senna delivered for them. Behind Rubens sat Coulthard, Webber, Raikkonen and Trulli, rounding out the top 5. Michael Schumacher sits in 7th, and young Fernando Alonso starts 10th in his Renault in his 3rd season. The heavens opened without remorse before the start of the race, making the track conditions diabolical. Rivers running across the sloping surface and pools of water conducive to aquaplaning were the key issues. All the chatter pre-race revolved around the dangers of racing in these conditions, the troubles with spray and the looming threat of more rain. Safety in Formula One is an ever-changing prospect with the goal of prevention before disaster. However, in motorsport, sometimes a catastrophe is needed for changes to follow. Gone is the mindset of the 1960s and 1970s, when death was sometimes the price of doing business. Sir Jackie Stewart survived those years with 3 championships and was responsible for some of the most basic yet resourceful features, including seatbelts and full-faced helmets. Other significant changes include mandating carbon fibre helmets in 2001, fire-resistant race suits in 1975, and the survival cell introduced in 1981. The survival cell, also known as the monocoque, is a central part of the chassis made of 6mm carbon fibre and Kevlar. It is penetration resistant and can absorb massive amounts of impact during crashes. The safety car is a self-titled safety device in the sport since 1993. Today, it is a well-oiled machine driven by a professional racing driver. The FIA guides them to ensure everything from its speed to their timing of picking up and leaving the field is pinpoint to ensure a fair and accurate race control. During its inception years, it was scarcely called upon and often picked up the wrong car, leading to confusion and inaccurate results. The pit lane is another area that has seen major overhauling. Senna once set an official fastest lap at Donington Raceway by driving through the pit lane without stopping due to unrestricted pit lane speeds. But more on this race another day. Today, the pit lane speed limit is 80 km per hour or less at some tracks with tighter lanes. After the events of Imola 1994, track designs came under extreme scrutiny. Everything from corner speed, wall approach angles, tyre bundle construction and runoff areas was assessed and amended. Herman Tilke is responsible for designing many of Formula One's modern tracks. Unfortunately, these tracks lack character and sophistication, often resulting in lackluster racing and getting dropped off the calendar. These tracks include Malaysia, Buda and Istanbul, all featuring tarmac runoffs and no punishment for drivers who get them wrong. They are hardly worthy of a spot on motorsport's greatest calendar. In 2001, NASCAR lost a racing hero, Dale Earnhardt, in a last lap crash at the Daytona 500. Contact with another car sent his iconic number 3 Chevy into a retaining wall. He was killed on track and airlifted to the hospital. Many believed he may have survived if he had been wearing a harness device. In 2001, NASCAR recommended but did not enforce this device. Many drivers found it uncomfortable and unnecessary. Many safety features are unnecessary until they aren't. 2003 saw Formula One enforce the harness device, which stands for head and neck support. This apparatus clips to the side of the driver's helmet and sits on their shoulders. The seatbelt sits atop and essentially attaches the driver's head and shoulders to the monocoque. Will the harness device prove itself a necessary safety component? This season in Formula One saw a rule change regarding wet tyres. Due to Michelin's struggles to produce quality wet weather tyres, a rule was implemented that both Michelin and Bridgestone could only bring wets or inters, not both. By round 3, this would prove to be a big mistake, as both manufacturers elected for intermediates weeks before the event kicked off. The conditions on track were dire, and the inters may not be up for the task. 21 cars take the green light, 20 Formula One purebreds and the safety car. The field follows the Mercedes-Benz CLK 55 AMG for 8 slow laps, quickly eroding the 2-hour green flag time. Just before the race starts, Jordan opts to pit both their cars for fuel, but more importantly, warm Michelin inters straight out of the blankets. Eddie Jordan senses this race could be anyone's and is showing his racing prowess early. Martin Brundle quips, "I hate when the commentators have to do more work than the drivers," as excitement builds for lap 9. Rubens Barrichello is given control of the field and holds the pack right to the line. An aggressive David Coulthard surprises him into turn 1. Kimi, in third, is hounding the rear of Webber's Jag as the championship leader is eager to not let his teammate get too far ahead. Nick Heidfeld's Sauber catches fire and quickly retires from the race as he pulls behind the barriers to find the fire marshals. Raikkonen takes Webber and immediately passes Rubens into turn 1 on lap 10. The McLarens now run 1-2 with Montoya third after dispatching a struggling Barrichello. It takes Kimi just one more lap to take the lead from Coulthard in a show of true bravery. Coming from 4th to 1st in 2 laps, exploring parts of the track others do not dare to find some grip. Juan Pablo follows suit and demotes DC to 3rd. Further down the field, Rubens Barrichello's struggles continue as Mark Webber passes the Brazilian, and his Ferrari teammate also wastes no time. Rubens falls from 1st to 7th in 4 laps. The McLaren duo and Montoya in his Williams are setting the pace 3 seconds a lap quicker than their rivals, with Coulthard the best on lap 12 with a 1:27.1. Lap 13. David takes back third from Montoya, driving up the inside at the final corner. Brundle speculates that Williams' traction control may be a touch high and Montoya bogs down mid-corner as a result. Michael Schumacher quickly passes Webber and Montoya as he seemingly gets to grips with the Brazilian tarmac. He takes third, but is now 9 seconds behind the race leader. On lap 17, Michael Schumacher sets a new benchmark of 1 minute 24.3, but this race starts to take a turn on the same lap. Justin Wilson spins his Minardi and stalls, becoming the second retiree. This is soon followed by Ralph Furman's front suspension failing entering turn 1. Furman narrowly misses his Jordan teammate Giancarlo Fisichella. Olivier Panis is not so lucky. His Toyota is rear-ended and just like that, there are 4 cars out of this race. The safety car enters the track for the second time as cars and debris must be removed from the circuit. McLaren elected not to stop race leader Kimi under the safety car and instead chose to gamble on the track clearing up and having to stop for dry tyres soon, which was ambitious. Not as ambitious as Renault, which accidentally installed a set of slick tyres on Alonso's R23 before sending him. The Spaniard returned to the pits 1 lap later to exchange his slicks for the more appropriate intermediate tyres, but he is now running 16th and last. With lap 23 comes more racing. Kimi executing a perfect restart and with his light fuel load already pulling 8/10 out of his rivals by turn 1. Rubens Barrichello makes light work of the yet-to-be-stopped Cristiano Di Mada and retakes 4th place. Chaos re-emerges with Montoya and Pizziona having separate yet identical crashes at turn 3, aquaplaning off the track and smashing into the outside tyre bundles. Remarkably, the safety car is left in park as track marshals and a recovery vehicle enter the live track and grab the 2 stricken cars. 1 lap later, Michael Schumacher enters turn 3 and he too aquaplanes off the track, wiping out the rear of his F2003 GA. Michael missed the recovery vehicles by meters. With the near miss seen by race control, they deployed the safety car for the 3rd time. 7 cars have now retired from the Grand Prix. Under the safety car, McLaren relent and pit Kimi. Coulthard assumes the lead with Rubens second and Ralf Schumacher third. The safety car pulls off with 43 scheduled laps remaining, and Coulthard goes early before the final turn. Ralf and Rubens enjoy a fierce battle through the turn 1, 2 and 3 sections, switching places back and forth before Rubens comes out triumphant. Jos Verstappen becomes the next casualty of turn 3 as he spins and stalls his Minardi. There is no wall contact, but it is another retirement from this race. Jenson Button approaches turn 3 with little caution as his young, ambitious desire takes over. Jenson gets mid-corner oversteer. He initially corrects the slide well, but his BAR Honda slides again. This time he overcorrects and quickly joins the expensive parking lot that is turn 3. This collection of cars now includes Williams, Jaguar, Minardi, Ferrari and Honda. The race resumes once more with 11 cars remaining and Coulthard still leading. Only McLaren and Renault have all their horses left. Kimi is aggressive off the restart, eager to avenge the lost time. He forces a move on Alonso in turn 1 and immediately takes third from Schumacher one corner later. The commentators hail the 23-year-old as a massive hero. As the track mercifully begins to dry, Coulthard sets a new fastest lap of 1 minute 23 seconds, 0.8 on lap 38. Rubens responds by going 6/10 quicker. With 32 laps to go, the leaders trade fastest laps. Coulthard's pride is on the line. His young Finnish teammate has become his biggest and most unforgiving rival, outperforming DC in the last 5 qualifying and race sessions and leading the Drivers' World Championship. For Barrichello, any race without Michael Schumacher is a golden opportunity to win, and no better place than in front of his beloved home crowd. Mark Webber has a spin at turn 3 as he pirouettes his Jaguar before safely returning to the track. He is the first driver to defy Interlagos today, but the track is unforgiving and has a long memory. David Coulthard is struggling on his worn Inters and runs wide at turn 1 on lap 44, giving free passage to Rubens, much to the joy of the grandstands. Barrichello wastes no time in clear air, setting a new fastest lap of 1 minute 22 seconds, 0.7, demolishing the field on his Bridgestone Inters. Lap 47, and the unthinkable happens. Rubens Barrichello pulls off the track while leading his home Grand Prix. He looked set not only to win, but finish it. This is something Rubens had not accomplished on the previous 9 trips to Interlagos. He had not yet crossed the line since his rookie year in 1994. After the heartbreak, the fans leave the track despite Brazilian Demata still contending. On track, DC pits relinquishing a 20-second lead to Kimi. Raikkonen quickly loses this lead to Giancarlo Fisichella after a small mistake from the Finn. A series of unbelievable events that would prove incredibly costly to the McLaren team. On lap 54, Mark Webber rounds the banked back straight when he spins and contacts the outside tyre wall at 241 km per hour, covering the track in Jaguar parts. Mark's car lays to rest on the inside of the track, 3 wheels gone, front end gone, but the Australian emerges unscathed. While the safety car has been deployed, the remaining drivers are compelled to race back to the safety car at speed. Fernando Alonso, unsighted, enters the same section of track and collects one of Webber's wheels. This pitches his Renault head-on into the concrete wall inside the track at 240 km an hour. The car ricochets across the track and hits the outside wall, where it comes to rest. Red flags are thrown to signify the race has been stopped. Fernando Alonso is seen out of his car, yet clearly winded, with 5 marshals and medical staff tending to him trackside. Fernando is eventually put in an ambulance and taken to hospital, suffering a bruised elbow, knee and thigh. After Webber and Alonso crash, there are now 8 cars remaining. Leader, Fisichella, enters the pit lane on fire, his Jordan having erupted in flames on the in-lap. If the race were to restart, it would be now with only 7 cars. With the race hitting 75% distance, it was determined it would not restart and full points would be awarded. Initially, the race was taken back 2 laps due to confusion about the countback rule. The win was awarded to Kimi Raikkonen, with Fisichella in second and Alonso third. This gave the unusual sight of a podium with only 2 drivers standing on it. 5 days later, the results were amended and Giancarlo Fisichella was officially crowned the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix winner, his first in 110 attempts. The countback rule stipulates that race results should be classified when the leader last crossed the line before the red flags are waved. Giancarlo's overtake on Kimi came at a critical time. Fernando Alonso's crash was severe and is the first example of what might have been without the harness device. A frontal impact at such high speeds creates the potential for a similar basilar skull fracture seen with Dale Earnhardt just 2 years earlier. Since 2003, several more safety features have been added to the sport, but none more drastic and necessary than the halo. Since the 2014 Jules Bianchi incident, every open cockpit category has adopted a safety device to better shield the drivers' heads. The halo has potentially saved numerous lives, namely Romain Grosjean and Zhao Guanyu. Only one question remains. What was Formula One's most crucial development to improve driver safety?
Round 1. Player 1. Ready. Player 2. Ready. Fight.
Timmy, welcome to my humble abode once again.
Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have you here. It's more of a pleasure to see you leave, though.
Yeah.
Tell you that much.
Oh, me too. The house is actually quite warm.
Is it?
Yeah, it's quite warm here.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying my stay.
You're pretty rugged up there. Sweating up a
Took
storm.
off a few layers. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't appreciate the smell, but you know.
No, that's right. Warmth over.
We shouldn't get into smell though. It's a touchy subject.
People get offended.
All right, so 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix. Why did you pick this one?
It's chaotic.
It is catastrophic.
Yeah. If I was to think of a race that underlines the importance of safety in Formula One,
This is the one.
This is up there.
What I mean, there was watching that back. There was quite a few shocking moments, especially what are we 22 years on now. There's stuff that you would never see occur in a current race that we see and we saw in that one. So
Yeah.
what do you think was some of the more shocking moments?
I think straight away the most shocking that stands out, and when you're watching it, you're like, "This is wrong. This is wrong." Is the marshals and recovery vehicles on track at turn 3, where
With
numerous cars had spun.
Continuously
just-
spinning off of there.
Yeah, it just seemed right. And then Schumacher obviously goes off a lap later, and is, close to hitting that recovery vehicle. But you look at it and you go, it just is wrong. Like, and even at the end of the race, like you mentioned it, the marshal that was essentially on track after Webber's crash,
just hanging out on the right
just
there,
like waiting
on the
to
outside
run
of
across the track to check on Mark,
Yeah.
but he's in bounds of the track
Yeah.
after a massive crash. It just happened. There's debris everywhere.
Even when Alonso comes spearing through, he hits so much debris that sends it directly at
the
the
tire
marshal
hit
too.
pretty much lined him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Unbelievable.
Wild to think like how many, the dangerous era of Formula One. I mean, especially compared to today's standards again. But it's funny to think of, someone like Michael Schumacher, who got through a whole career relatively unscathed, only to then succumb in such a manner that he did. Like you look at something like that where he does go spearing off towards a tractor on track, and you just think like, all these little near misses and stuff, he survived it.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean,
a few years after his career, he's
has a head
undone
injury.
a different way.
a
Yeah.
head injury as well. And when we saw what happened to Jules Bianchi in it, you almost go, how did that only happen once? It's a shame it takes that to happen to change the rules, but how does that only happen one time? I mean, it was similar conditions, pissing down rain, and one car goes off, it's gonna happen again, and that's what happened in Brazil in 03.
So, obviously, the episode's revolving mostly around the harness device, the head and
Next sport.
neck support. Yeah, it's getting there. All right.
Sorry, just wanted to speed you up. We don't have long.
Do you think that is Formula One's biggest safety
I do,
improvement?
yeah. No,
Or-
not just
or
Formula One,
implement?
motorsport. Absolutely. Yeah. We've seen heaps. We haven't seen probably many major injuries or deaths from not having it. But you see a lot of the older crashes where the driver's head is flinging around, for not having it. So And it was widely regarded as a big reason why Dale Earnhardt died when he did. And if he was wearing it, maybe things would have been different. But I think it's one of the biggest safety improvements for sure.
Yeah, obviously there's quite a few massive ones, and each one is good in their own right. But when I watch races of that age, or from any era from, basically pre-Halo, I can't help but look at it and think, how did they allow this? Like, how did more people not suffer deaths or like serious injury from not having any kind of protection in such an open cockpit?
So you think the Halo is...
I think the Halo was the biggest safety implement, the most important safety implement.
It's definitely probably one of the biggest.
I mean,
as far as
you got to have a head to protect a head, So the Halo at least does that. I mean, you look at a crash like Roman Grosjean had, and honestly, in any other era of Formula One, he does not survive that. There is no way he's walking out from that. I still watch that and don't understand how he walked away from that.
He's lucky. And we have seen in maybe the 80s or maybe 70s, a driver get decapitated from going through that exact split style guardrail.
Yeah.
So
it's all very, very thrilling and positive, uplifting content.
Well, look, the Halo is a massive thing, but you look at it and you go, how many, like they say they can list off 6 drivers that have survived due to the Halo. Then how did you go so long without a death where the Halo would have saved him? When you think of like Senna, the Halo wouldn't have saved him. Ratzenberger, the Halo wouldn't have saved him. We've had numerous crashes at Turn 1 in Spa where cars are flying over the top of others and no one has had head injuries from it. Massa, with the spring to his head, the Halo has got a 10% chance of saving him, depending on where the spring sort of flies. So there's been numerous cases where the Halo wouldn't have saved these lives, or hasn't in the past. But now they'll say Hamilton wouldn't be alive without the Halo. Grosjean, which I do believe, it's a huge one. You don't see cars doing that often.
No.
And then even the Bianchi incident, that was why the Halo was brought in, but he hit the back of a tractor.
Yeah.
I don't know how strong the Halos are, whether,
if things go through a guardrail in a flaming bowl and walk out unscathed, I'm pretty
sure. But the guardrail moved around the Formula 1 car. Recovery tractor is not going to move around a Formula 1 car,
I guess it depends on where it struck it, right? And how. But
the footage, the tractor gets airborne. It's huge. But the other thing that Bianchi incident, that's when they started looking at virtual safety car. All right, we need to bring the field under control if we don't want to implement a full safety car. And in that case, if you got like now,
I mean that alone is a massive safety development.
Yeah.
Just that one.
Yeah, and it sucks for racing. I still think safety car or not. For that Bianchi incident, 100%, you bring, not the incident, but the recovery vehicle should be covered by a safety car.
Well, we're kind of in a, almost, like, I guess with motorsport, it is one of the more riskier sports you can play. I guess most sports come with some level of risk of injury. Not all come with a risk of death, but most sports definitely up there. I do sometimes get the feeling that we've overcorrected, and I'm not necessarily saying that we should be implementing a sport that, there is a high risk of death. But I do fear that the more that we're wrapping them in, cotton wool, that it is now taking away from the thrilling nature of the sport, by having too many controlled elements now. So it's a balancing act of trying to find where can we keep drivers safe from death or serious injury, life-altering injury, but still have good, hard racing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Raymond quote. That was, what was it? Formula One has too much. What was it? Too much
regard for life.
Yeah,
has not enough.
Yeah, so Formula One has too much regard for human life. Yeah, that was a you quote, which I love.
Like the more that they're taking away, like, there's an element of risk there, take that away.
Yeah.
It's getting to a point where it's like, well, why don't we just watch a video game?
Well, I think, I think the two things I'd say that I don't like, or that have safety, yes, but taken away from the racing, is obviously tarmac runoffs.
Yeah.
Like the whole runoff thing, you really take...
Because that's still, for the most part, that's still a driver responsibility.
Yeah.
Barring the car malfunctioning in some way,
Yeah, exactly.
It's up to the driver to race within the track limits, right? So if you're pushing it too hard to make a move in a part of the track where, there's no runoff, and now you're risking ending your race, that to me is all fair game. You don't make the move yet. You be more patient, or you look for another spot to make the move.
Yeah. I think what used to make a racing driver above, or a racing driver that could outrace his skill, is where bravery comes in. Because how much do you want to risk in a fast lap, pushing the track limits, physical track limits, putting your tire right against the grass to maximize the potential of the lap, as opposed to now it's like, the drivers say they can do that, but if they get it wrong, whatever, they get their lap time deleted. Like there's no ramifications. So I think that's
pathetic,
impacted
isn't it?
Yeah. The other thing is I don't love the safety car speed when the safety car's deployed.
Like too high or too low?
Like don't have it.
Yeah, okay.
They say under general yellows, they have to see the drivers actually lifting and have to see a response. Yeah. That's what they should do in a safety car, because we've seen races manipulated many times where the yellow's waved, everyone has to go down the same speed, it cuts the pit stop times really short. So I think that's had a negative effect on racing. Yeah. Obviously, you need to do something, and the Alonso incident with Webber in 03 is the ramifications of doing nothing. Because he obviously, yellows were out, safety car was on track, but everyone's racing back to the pit lane or to the safety car.
They're trying to save as much time as possible.
Yeah, so he's doing the brave thing. You saw lots of cars slowing down there trying to weave through. Alonso's just gone full send, seen an opportunity, and it's cost him the race, and he had some injuries, and it was a scary incident,
Well, then as we saw, because there were marshals on track as well, they were lucky they didn't get cleaned up in that too.
Yeah, so they need to find in between where they don't cut the speed so low, but go, you need to slow down, or they got a delta, just knock off 10%, just a small amount, so cars have to slow down, or the delta has to be down 50% in that micro sector where the incident is. But try and control it more where manipulation is not coming into the sport, and you're getting Lando Norris was winning races last year based off of lucky draw of the safety car.
Well, I guess even to what you're saying with the whole, as long as they see them lift, they basically give you the all clear. Yeah. And to me, that's even
it's a bit of a piss
stupider.
take. Bit of a piss take.
It's like there's no real safety there.
So that's what I'm saying. They need to do, now it's what is it, 80 Ks, 100 Ks, whatever it is. It's the safety car speed limit.
Even if it was because we know we have clear sectors, right? So even if it was whatever sector the incident is in, you're under yellows for that whole sector.
Yeah, and drop 70% of your pace or something.
So there is no bullshit around. He lifted there, so he's all good.
Exactly.
The other sectors you're free to race as normal, because there shouldn't be any cars, marshals, anything, debris on the track there. But as soon as you hit that sector, until they get it cleared away, you're back racing under. If you want to keep it as fair as possible, and I guess stopping the race and taking out all the momentum or the losing the gaps, whatever it might be.
But I think those are the two that have probably impacted the racing itself. The Halo, the Hans device, all these things that are car related, track related, don't impact the racing so much, and that's fine. Make the cars as safe as you want. I think most people didn't like the Halo when it was introduced. It looks
I remember the
odd.
Massive backlash from drivers and fans.
Now you don't even notice it. It's just a part of the car. No. Now it actually, you've said it before, it looks odd going back to the cars before the Halo. And it's wow, that's wild.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a case of I don't know. I don't know how you fix it, where we're at right now, to make the racing more entertaining and not be too safe. But, find that line of, obviously, we don't want to see drivers lose their lives or have terrible, horrific injuries. I mean, we covered the race with in 94 with Williams, and we spoke about Senna a little bit. And anytime I watch that footage, it just hits me hard every time. I still can't get my head around that, that happened to such a driver of his caliber. And he doesn't leave the track, doesn't see his family again. He goes out doing what he loves. You could maybe spin it that way, but no one wants to die in a car wreck like that. That's just horrific.
The incident was so minute, and this is why they made changes to the track cornering speed, because again, you don't know it's broken until you need to fix it. So they look at a corner like that and they go, you know what? Maybe this is too quick. Maybe that barrier is not suffice. The angle of it, you're now opening yourselves up for an ability where you're hitting it at more of a 45 degree. And
well, that's what I was going to say about the Halo is, everyone had all this hoopla about how terrible it was and you can't see and it looks terrible and whatever. Now it's very normalized, but it definitely did take the first big incident that we saw where the Halo probably saved someone from injury or death to go, oh no, the Halo's actually pretty good. We actually need the Halo. And then you don't hear any of that narrative about it's not needed or it's not racing or whatever it might be. So.
No, they've gone the good way about it. I mean, IndyCar have the aero screen and that's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
You avoid the bar if that's their problem. You have a straight line, but it looks silly.
Yeah.
It just looks like a big piece of perspex that fully encompasses the driver. It's an open cockpit, but only, it's just enough for you to submarine into the car.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you were to have like a Grosjean level crash, I mean, are you living to tell the tale with those aero screens? Or is it the fact that the Halo has that central pillar and what is it? Like, is it? I know that they've got some sort of metal in there, it's wrapped in carbon fiber, and it's like
Kevlar and all.
Yeah, it's like the most indestructible thing that you can find on planet Earth.
yeah, exactly.
So
no, I think it's clearly a good implementation. I mean, I honestly hate to think of what Roman Grosjean would have looked like if he didn't have the Halo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So as far as 03 goes, how was it for an era watching it back now? Like, what are some of the things that stood out for you? It's super strange to see Alonso on the grid.
Yeah. Even Webber, like you go, like we spoke about him a couple of weeks ago when he only had 12 years, but 2003 seems so long ago. But at the same time, 2012-13 doesn't seem that long ago.
Yeah.
So even to see a Webber on the grid, but again, a lot of big names. Raikkonen was there. You just had Alonso, Webber, Schumacher, Barrichello.
Yep.
A lot of Verstappen, just the wrong one. But
the only time you'll see a Verstappen in 16.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
For the whole race.
Yeah. I mean, at some point through the race, one of the commentators said, the young guys or something like that.
Oh yeah, the young kids.
The young kids. That's really hit home.
Yeah.
The young kids were really showing cool a lesson, and he's talking about Raikkonen and Alonso.
Yeah.
It's crazy to hear that. I mean, Raikkonen was in his second year, and
Alonso was in his
third year.
sure, yeah.
And then, like you said, like Alonso's still here, still going.
Yeah.
Not only did he survive that crash, but didn't impact him in any way, and he's still racing on the grid now.
But he's had bigger crashes than that as well. So he's continuously, I guess, ran the gauntlet of Formula One.
I mean, if you survive that, you're probably like, all right, these cars are safe. And it was minor injuries, bruising and
that crash he had in Australia. That was
mega.
That was probably his biggest one.
But they always say the crashes that are the worst are you're losing a lot of speed in one hit. That Australian one, it was pretty wild. He was flying through the air, but you got to imagine it was a bit of more of a slower momentum was slowing, whereas he hit that barrier in Brazil at 240 kilometers an hour, and it was head on. Then, I'm sure it didn't feel good when he come across and hit the other wall with the front of the car. There wasn't much left of it. I mean, it does show the monocoque, like Webber's car and Alonso's car.
The what?
The monocoque.
Oh, yeah. How do you spell that?
Monocoque. Webber and Alonso's car, they looked very similar with the damage.
Yeah.
Like, they'd both done damage to the point where they pretty much, besides the engine, pulled everything off the car, besides the monocoque, the safety cell. The whole front end was gone right to the start of that monocoque to protect the feet. All the wheels were gone. All the suspension was gone. Like, they'd really gutted the cars down to just the survival cell.
Well, even, using that crash as an example and talking about safety, there was wheels flying everywhere, like literally flying and rolling everywhere.
Yeah.
Now they have the straps
Tethers,
to keep those attached to the car, so hopefully they don't go flying off into the crowd or to other cars.
Well, that's the other thing. They're lucky that, not only for tyres off the car, which there was 6 of them floating around, but the tyre bundle tyres.
That went everywhere too. Yeah.
After
so
Alonso
hits one of those, they're just...
Yeah, there was just tyre city. You could stock a bloody Bridgestone.
For me personally, hearing those engines again was just even the audio mics just crackle when they go flying past at certain corners when they're too close.
Yeah,
and you can feel on the other side of the TV, you can feel the pain in your ears still, and you're like,
That's an easy win. You've always got to go for the sound.
Why have we moved away from this? Like,
Yeah.
why are we nerfing racing so much that we're trying the hardest to make it boring?
Yeah.
And now, like, we're sort of talking about it. The whole shift has in interest in Formula One. There's still a core group of guys that love racing for racing, and I'd argue that that's us. We love the thrill of the sport and the history of it, and the on-track battles. But now it seems like the sport's more of this behind-the-scenes thing. Now you've got like the Drive to Survive stuff that's come through. You've got the F1 movie that's out now. It seems like now it's this big entertainment package that's taking away from the sport.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
It's like, okay, we know most of the racing is boring, and like even this year, how many boring races have we to endure? And we're only in round 10.
Yeah.
But how much noise is there off track?
Yeah.
You know, that's including the drivers.
I mean, we've done a few of these retro races now, and generally, the crowds 120 to 170,000. This year, I think the first 4 or 5 were records.
Well, even
Australia was 400.
Canada,
plus.
I'm pretty sure, broke a record for attendance.
Like there's people coming out of the woodwork for these races now.
Yeah.
Whereas back then you had just the people who were interested.
Yeah. And so how many of those people are there because they want to see good racing? How many are there because they're just fans of Lando Norris, fans of George Russell?
Yeah. Just want to see them. They're becoming an everyday superstar.
Yeah.
You know, not just the out of touch, hyper rich.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. To me, it's a bit of a worry when your sport is becoming more interesting for what it does off track than what it's doing on track. And I guess that's where I commend guys like, and I'll just name the obvious one, Verstappen, who definitely still comes across as like a pure racer.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to race cars. I want to be a world champion. I don't want to deal with all this other bullshit that you make me do.
Yeah.
He understands that there's a bare minimum he's got to do to promote the team and promote the sport.
He's a professional.
But anything that he doesn't need to do, you won't find him there.
He'd rather go do sim racing in his spare time from his real life racing.
Yeah, or do laps at Spa in some other category or whatever. So I commend those guys being that, I don't know. Maybe that's why they're world champions. They're in it for the right reasons. I'm sure every one of those guys will always tell you they want to be a world champion and they want to be fighting for wins. Yeah. But only one can be a world champion. Only one constructor can win. There's a lot of losing drivers, that are just... How many on the grid don't have a win? How many will never get a win? So they're occupying a seat. So then it's more of like, what are you bringing to the table? Look at Daniel Ricciardo is almost the perfect example of that, where, it hurts to say as a fan of his and as an Australian, but how much of his personality did legitimately keep him in a seat or bring him back to a seat?
Bring him back, probably right.
I
think you bring up a good point, because we've spoken about a couple of times this year that it doesn't matter what Formula One give us, we're always going to come back.
Yeah.
They can give us 3-4 just shit heaps in a row. The next race is still going to be record TV viewing, record attendance on track. And they don't care. They can produce anything. And we just keep going back.
Well, it's a sport that was traditionally European dominated. So us as Australians, it was always very difficult to follow the sport, week to week. It's more than easier ever to see all the content that's sort of surrounding a race weekend. But we still have the downside of you got to watch it at a stupid time. And the race is always on Sunday night. It's not on Saturday night. It's not like you can watch the race Saturday night, have a late one or whatever it is, and then you've got the Sunday to recover before work.
I have to go to work Monday.
Yeah. I mean, not all of us have Mondays off, but you know what I mean? It makes it even more difficult to, like, how many people then aren't watching the races and they're just catching some highlights or just hearing it on the news the next day that are outside of those regions.
And again, we're lucky nowadays that we have the resources we have and had for the last sort of 10 years. KO, Foxtel. Like, again, going back to even not that long ago in 2012, like I say, if you miss a race, like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's literally it. You can't just go and watch it again. There's no reruns. There's no, let me just go back and catch the replay on KO. Like, that is it. Unless you have a way of recording it of your own devices. Now it's, like, we watch it. We have a job to do, you see. So we watch them live and we put in the hard yards so others don't have to. But if we didn't do that, there's no harm in going to work and then catching the replay the next day or whatever, But that's definitely the benefit we have nowadays.
So 2003, do you remember much of that season as a whole and some of the narratives that were
threading through, or
I do.
you kind of just looked at this race as quite a pivotal point in terms of what occurred on that day?
Pretty much, yeah. Not so much how it changed the sport, because I don't reckon there was any implications from it, but how it proved the sport was heading in the right direction with safety, namely the harness device was probably the biggest thing. It was mandated that year. Obviously, they didn't look at the Schumacher near miss and how they needed to change that, unfortunately, honestly. Nothing really changed from that race, but I think it just showed where the sport was compared to even 10 years before that, 20 years before that, you know. That was... Jenson Button had a big crash that race. But, so not only did Alonso and Webber have a big crash, Jenson's crash was pretty decent. He got airborne. It was a big crash. There was obviously a lot of crashes as well. 7 cars were going to... if they restarted, only 7 cars going to do it. There was a lot of DNFs that race.
That doesn't happen often.
But I think that's... probably the biggest thing is that those Ferraris, I feel like that year, you look at that car, Marlboro, Shell, what's the other one? Vodafone, Tic Tac. Some of the biggest sponsors, and Tic Tac might not be huge, but I think Tic Tac and I think Ferrari, you know. Yeah. I think that livery in that car, the sound, such an iconic combination. Yeah. That to me speaks Ferrari, you know, that car.
Well, I mean, it was a Ferrari dominant era as well, like that.
Well, he's in the midst of his championship run. Yeah. So, but I think he might have. Oh no, I think he might have been struggling to start that year. I think he hadn't had a podium yet.
Is that his last year?
No, he had a few more.
Years, did he? Yeah.
But I think, I think the first 2 he didn't have a podium, and then he DNF'd this one, so he's having a rough start. And there's only 16. That's the other thing. There's only 16 races that year.
Yeah.
So nowadays there's fast. 8 more races. Yeah. You know, so he's off to a slow start, and then he had less year to come back from that. You know?
I think watching it for me, one of the key takeaways, I love Brazil. Interlagos is, I think, one of the best tracks out there, both as a viewer and a driver. I think as far as iconic tracks go, so tracks that have been around for a long time.
Spa, Monza, Canada,
Monaco. I think if you're sort of rating them, to me that is a perfect balance of an iconic track that provides entertainment. Yeah. You know, it's to me it's a 10 out of 10. We've got iconic tracks that provide little to no entertainment. And then we have a lot of tracks that they're good, but then just not on calendar anymore because they've had to make way for new regions as the sport's growing, or different types of tracks with different sorts of safety standards. So
it's probably one of those tracks where, you talk about drivers bringing fans, people wanting to come just to see a driver. It's probably one of those tracks that will bring audiences to the TV just because the track.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You can count on your hands, you know, well, you couldn't count on your hands how many iconic moments you think about when you think of that track. You got the Webber crash, you got the Senna missing a gear at his home track, gets the win. Yeah. Just countless. Even Seb, he spins on lap 1 and then he manages to drive back through the field to get his one of his world championships.
Yeah. Well, and is that Timo Glock? Is that Timo Glock?
The Glock one. Being at the end of the year, it's been a pivotal race that has closed a lot of championships.
Yeah, I mean, just recently we saw Verstappen make his way from 17th to 1st,
something like that. Yeah,
in another wet race with high attrition. So again,
a lot of the qualifying a couple of years ago, the Haas got the pole. Just as in a sense of qualifying, you think of that moment, just crazy conditions. And it produces good qualifying sessions. Yeah,
it's one of those ones bucket list for me. If I could go, if you could pick a handful of races to go, that's definitely one that I'd love to.
Yeah, the crowd looks pretty nuts there too. Yeah, very close to the track. I mean, it's a good layout too. I feel like you could if you got a good vantage point, you could almost see the whole track. It's a real bull ring style track.
Yeah,
it's a good layout, and like you said, it's good.
Which I think is why those sorts of tracks, I miss them, because motor racing is a sport where you go, the atmosphere is great, but you literally just get to see a 2-second block of you don't get to see any action anywhere else on the track.
Yeah,
it's definitely more enjoyable at home on the TV. You can see everything going, you got all the information, but when you're at track, you're there for the atmosphere. So if you can get one of those spots where you can see a sequence of corners, or maybe on the straight where you can see them come off the last corner into the first corner, you get a good block of racing. you know,
You get to hear the cars, especially back then.
yeah.
Get to hear the cars roaring past at top speed, top RPMs. Yeah.
Like Melbourne, you got to spend all day walking around the track, and you're gonna burn 20,000 steps. But each time you only get to see a little sliver of racing, 10 meters back from the track through fences. It's
I
just
think Melbourne is
fantastic.
I think Melbourne is even regarded as one of the better viewing tracks,
Which is hilarious.
because they've got a lot of the mounds, so you can kind of sit on a hill and see over the fence and look through the debris fencing, and they got a lot of long straights. We can kind of perch yourself and see them sort of come past. So you're right, and especially because the speed of the cars, they rocket by.
Yeah.
It's over before you know it. But I think it is regarded as a good spectacle. I mean, you'd been there recently.
Yeah, I was there last year. It was great day. You know, you always go there. It's cold. It's sort of somewhat overcast, but you leave sunburnt somehow. So
It's Australia, right?
Yeah. Anything else you want to add about the race, or
Probably
about
should-
the question?
Probably should mention Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yep.
First win.
Getting a win,
But-
Fizzy. Yeah.
Yep. Like we said in the retelling, it was a race that was more. I feel like if you think about 2003 Brazil, a lot of people would know what you're talking about, and you're going to think the crashing. You're going to think the weather. You're not going to think Fisichella's first win. I mean, I watched the race not knowing who's going to win the race.
Well,
Before I wrote it
caught
out.
a lot of big names out, right?
Yeah.
If you think of like the best of the best drivers, they pretty much all got caught out by the track at some point.
I mean, Schumacher, that was his first retirement over 2 years. Caught Webber out twice.
Yep.
Twice.
Talking of the best of the best.
Yeah. So, but I don't think you think of that, and you don't think Giancarlo Fisichella's first win.
No.
When I think of Giancarlo Fisichella, I think about his Australia, where his team come on the radio and Giancarlo, you were 2 seconds a lap slower than Fernando. How can this be possible?
Yeah.
That's what I think about when I think of Fissy. I don't think about cool, he won for Jordan. In,
They need to
three.
relay that message to Stroll now.
yeah.
He's the new Fizzy.
Yeah. He's still 2 seconds a lap slower than Fernando.
No.
Yeah. No, I think I think we've covered most of it. The advancements of safety at that time from the past, and then day and night from then to now. Only 20 years later, and Fernando's still
Well,
in it.
next year, I think there's expectations are high from at least, again, probably a core group of fans to see what is the next era going to produce in terms of racing. What can we expect?
As long as there's no dominant team, that's all we
It's
need.
probably going to happen. Like that always happens.
Someone will come
You
at the
look
gate
back-
strong, but as long as they can kind of be reeled in pretty quick. I mean, that's what we want, right? I mean,
It would be great to see a good 4 or 5 driver battle all through the year. And we do get those rarely, but yeah, I mean, so many unknowns.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a bit of a weird spot this year because, the racing on track hasn't been mega, but
we kind of want that.
they're also
for Oscar.
so close that 5 or 6 drivers can win any race. Like, we don't know who's going to go into what's next.
Austria.
Yeah, we don't know who's going to go into Austria and win. We have our hopes and our expectations, but George just proved, but George just proved that anyone can win it. That's how close the regs are, which is good. But as a result, we're being starved of on-track racing.
Yeah.
So if next year we can get on-track racing, even if there's 1 or 2 teams that are outlying, we just want to see some racing on track. That's what we all buy the tickets
Yeah,
for.
we've said it before. We'll say it again. It does seem to be more of a qualifying sport at the moment, unfortunately, and no one wants to see that.
No.
You want to see the racing.
I mean, that's
on race
probably
day.
what's keeping Max in it. Is the fact that he can reel the neck of the car,
Probably qualifying. Better qualified than anyone else, right?
and then the cars decide to pass. He's able to just hold his qualifying position for the most part. So
Yeah, I think the expectations are high.
I agree.
What are your thoughts on my hat here?
I like it.
Yeah,
No, it feels weird me not wearing a hat and you wearing a hat, but
switch
happy
it
to
up.
switch roles here.
I'll bring it back next week.
Yeah, I like it. Let us know the Box Box Bashers. Let us know what you think of the hat
And the head.
and the head.
Yeah, you sent a photo through the other day, and you had a nice little crooked line, and I was like, close enough. You must have just been like, close enough.
I was showing you the mohawk. I was going to run the mohawk, and you told me no. You said not allowed.
All right. So yeah, Austria. Next one. One of my personal favorites, the Red Bull Ring. Love it.
Yeah.
It's
It's another
Sweet.
bull ring track. It's another
another
bull ring.
Bull ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
I mean, it's Red Bull ring, but
yeah.
you know what I mean. You're putting down one picking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
No
well,
pun intended. The bull.
yeah. Well, Oscar, 22-point lead in the championship.
He can. This is his first chance to extend it beyond a race win.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, how many times have we said this? When he's had a race that's a little bit lackluster, he seems to bounce back and make up for it.
Yeah.
And even though he didn't have as bad as a race as Lando did in Canada, he still didn't have a great weekend. So I get the feeling he's going to be extra motivated to get out there. And
McLaren are going to be very, very interested in showing that was a one-off.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone get too keen.
Don't let it happen again.
Get too excited.
Yeah.
That was an anomaly. We're back. It's all good.
Wait.
I'm
I'm
excited.
keen. Yep.
Should be at a reasonable hour as well, which is
We'll be there either way.
either way.
Yep.
I just have hopes and desires
Well, don't.
of a decent bedtime.
You know better than that. Don't be stupid.
Been fooled once. I missed the start of the season.
Yeah.
Couple of midday races, mid-afternoon races. We're absolutely spoilt, weren't we?
I think we'll have a decent period over this European. Like it's the Canada races, it's the American races, it's the Arab races. That they're the ones that sting a little bit harder.
Yeah. You're probably right. We probably are over the hill now, and just until we get to the back end where they just lump all the American tracks together, and then it's a problem.
All right. Good chat.
All right.
GG's.
See you next week.
See you next week.